first up, I don't know why I'm using ESPN, but I think I just thought it was funny that ESPN reported on this. But yeah, Julius Jones. Death sentence for Julius Jones reduced to life in prison by Oklahoma governor. It happened. 4 hours before the execution time, it came that Governor Stitt was working. In fact, there had been a rumor he was out playing golf somewhere, but he was not. He was preparing a statement to shift Julius Jones's death sentence to life in prison without parole. So this was the executive order that got put out there. It's actually easier to read here. It was all very sudden. I was down in McAllister, tweeted a few things from there, pictures. Obviously, there was a ton of media. Some national outlets were there. Every local station was there. So we, had good coverage of what was happening there. Yeah, so Stitt did the brutal compromise of not freeing Julius Jones and instead shifting it to life without the possibility of parole. There are a lot of questions. I mean, obviously this all happened yesterday, and then I drove back from McAllister, and I'd slept like 3 hours the night before. So I did not do a whole lot of prep last night for all this. But obviously there's a lot of questions about what this really means, what the legal ramifications are. So those are still being explored. Obviously, the win in this is that death, as far as we understand it in the material sense, is irreversible. And this enables us to fight another day for Julius's freedom. So that is huge. Given how few sentences ultimately get commuted in this brutal country of ours, there is no way to interpret this except a win, because there was every indication the state was going to go through with this come hell or high water, but they didn't. So we get to fight another day. Relatedly, some of the statements that were put out, while kind of gross, I thought ultimately weren't as bad as they could have been. So looking at like the Howe family's statement, for as bloodthirsty and awful as this country can be, especially around capital punishment, this wasn't that. So I also consider that a win, that even the victim's family can, and while some of their more recent statements to me seem to indicate vengeance, and people in our tweet mentions while we were down in McAllister were hell-bent on vengeance, this doesn't scream vengeance to me, so that's good. It's still kind of gross and still obviously just massive props to the carceral state, but it's not 100%, we gotta kill people, which I think is great. So anyway, yeah, I think that's good. What I think is politically, and of course you hate to say when a person's life hangs in the balance, like what I think is politically important about this is a couple things. One, our reporting on this is still pretty terrible. Like one of the things I would like to see is like when we talk about the death penalty, and like what was great about being in McAllister was the family, a lot of the activists, the people who were there. The message is really like we should abolish the death penalty. Like it is a horrible process. We know innocent people die. It is rooted in vengeance. I mean, at its core, it's an eye for an eye, a death for a death. Often, it's just a horrible practice. And that was like really the message that I think got transmitted to the media, that I think got reported out. That if they took photos and pictures of signs and whatever else, that was the message that got reported out. So I think that is important. Is something we got to focus on. I also think it's important that in the messaging around the death penalty is like we are an extreme outlier. Like, there are not many countries, modern democracies or developed countries, that that kill people. Like, they just don't. So I think that's also very important to understand, that we are still a horrible outlier. And like, one of the things that we and I think, like, it's sort of telling, like, the real tension is, so that's Julius Jones's. So John O'Connor's statement, I mean, this is like, this was really gross. So O'Connor is like, he's the current attorney general. He's running again. Like, I chalk this up to some like Republican primary shit, but it just shows you where like a good quarter of the country is still at. Is this just like, bloodlust? Like, the only justice we know in this country is punishment and, whatever else. And I saw some interesting polling. I should have probably pulled it up on the death penalty, which said that it was national polling that said that the public supports the death penalty overall, but they think it's racist, they think we get it wrong, and they don't think it deters crime, which is like a really interesting way to frame this. Is like, so you don't think it works, you think it's racist, and you don't think it stops anyone from committing more crime, but you support it. Like, and that's where it's like, we just still have a lot of work to do on the death penalty in general. But I thought it was interesting that the Howe family seemed placated by not killing someone, which is, to me, is kind of a win. Rittenhouse, I saw that they had reached a verdict. I didn't see that. Yeah, I didn't see it was not guilty on all charges. That's fucking horrifying. Yeah, this is the system we have, right? I mean, this is the system that kills people. Is the same one that can say Julius Jones should have died because we believed he was guilty of shooting someone in a carjacking, but then a white kid can drive to another city and murder 2 people, and we can't find him guilty of anything. I mean, it's really, yeah, there's still really a lot that needs to happen around justice and figuring all that out. Yeah, it's a criminal legal system, as people continue to point out. It is just it's a system that, I mean, produces a lot of bad results. So anyway, politically though, I think my takeaway is that Stitt got backed into a corner. He was forced to make like an unjust decision. And so like my reaction, both being there, like the family when they spoke, brought up, it should have never taken this, right? Like, it should not have taken 6 million people signing a petition, countless celebrities speaking out, appeal after appeal after appeal, all these folks rallying to this cause to like stop what is a pretty obvious like miscarriage of justice, or at least enough doubt that like we cannot kill a man over it. So that's one important thing is like, that was after celebrating that a life will be spared today, is that like, I think it's important to understand that like there's still just a lot of reaction saying that this shouldn't have happened. And I also thought it was interesting, schools were walking out, and I've got kids in school, and their reaction was, yeah, but he's still in jail, or still in prison, And so I think it's interesting that the kids are reacting to that. I also think it's interesting that Joy Hoffmeister's immediate response and her political instincts aren't always definitely not left in any meaningful sense, but they're not always even that good in the sense of like reading the room. But she was like, he should have been like, it should have gone further. Like, that was her reaction. So I think, while obviously Stitt picked the like kind of most brutal bargain he could pick that kind of displeases all parties, like, I think it's interesting though that many people's reactions, even people who aren't steeped in this, who don't maybe even care that much about this, like, their reaction is like, this is still a miscarriage of justice. And so that heartens me. because, yeah, I mean, too many times when you get crumbs off the table, too many people are like, well, we won. It's fight's over, you know, like. And I also like that a lot of people weren't saying like, thanks, Stitt. Like very few people were like, oh, thank you, Kevin Stitt. You did great. Like, I mean, he waited until the last possible minute, made immeasurable suffering for even both families. I mean, even the Howe family. I mean, if they really were opposed to it, like, you made them stand on eggshells for how long? So I think, like, you know, Stitt still is going to face some consequences over this. And I think that is good. And it continues this conversation about what does a just system look like. Obviously, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, I mean, there's still, and then the Ahmaud Arbery trial or the murders of Ahmaud Arbery, that just wrapped up. So, I mean, there's still chances to get a lot of this wrong. Another reaction that I was hearing and heard down in McAllister, but also heard other people articulate is that if Stitt had gone through with it, shit might have popped off. And I thought that was interesting because I personally just had some doubts. I just think we live in a virulently, violently racist country, and you know, they would have put people down. I don't know. It would have been horrible. But the idea that maybe they are scared that like this is a bridge too far makes me hopeful. Like that, you know, collective action works, which those of us on the left like know it does, but you know, sometimes you have your doubts. So anyway, I think like the idea that maybe they really were scared that things were going to pop off, you know, gives us some. There's a lot to gather up with this and like think about and move forward with. I do want to speak real quick though on I do want to speak on Paul Howe's family. Like this is their statement. I'm popping it up again. You know, they affirmed the guilt of Julius Jones and he won't be eligible for parole. And like, so like they still got their like punishment. But I think like the fact that they didn't call for his death, I think is important. I mean, it's like, obviously it's a horrible compromise, but I think it is important. But I think like some of the missing piece in the broader conversation, again, not with Julius Jones, who constantly said he was sorry for the death of Paul Howe, that is a injustice in itself, and you know, all the activists and all the family and you know, everybody kept trying to bring it back to like this was bad for them too. We understand that is like reimagining what justice for Paul Howe looks like. Like their website, frankly, is pretty disgusting. Like if you've ever Googled it, and you know, when we would tweet about this, we would get a lot of mentions about this. But like, what does justice for these families look like? And like, I can just sitting here thinking about like trying to put myself in their shoes, which of course is difficult, but even reading some people who have had family that has been killed or harmed, like what does justice look like for them? And it's like, I don't think it's taking someone else's life and forcing you to go through this traumatizing experience of like appeals and battling for the ultimate goal of just killing another person. So I think that's another part of this conversation that needs to happen is like, what does justice for Paul Howe look like? You know, what does justice for victims of crime look like? And I mean, I think it could look like a lot of things. I mean, I think it look like compensation. I think it can look like, you know, attempts to give that family the resources they need to feel whole or to feel better or to have, you know, what was taken from them, you know, repaired in some meaningful way. So, you know, we definitely aren't getting to that part of the conversation, but I think that's like an important part that is still missing from this, but that I've heard in bits and pieces while I've been out, you know, around this. But that's something that I think is an important part that just needs to really kind of get built out is like, what does restorative justice look like? You know, what does, you know, justice for Paul Howe in a world where we're not just punishing or murdering people in the name of the state look like, or in our name look like? So anyway, very incremental step here on some of this, but it is a step, and we live to fight another day, and it is, you know, something that we can build upon. And so for that, I think we should be heartened. There's obviously a lot more to say on this. I really wish Ron and others could be here, but being in McAllister was very powerful. It was, a lot of great people who were looking to do something, to fight if need be. The police weren't terrible, but here's like my main tweet. I had a couple others, but this picture here, I mean, just to give people also context of what the penitentiary is like. McAllister's, I think somebody said it's like a town of 12,000, so fairly small-ish town, but like this was a block from the penitentiary, and I had multiple people who grew up in McAllister, lived in McAllister, that said that this property, which is like on a corner, literally like the road that I was standing on when I took that picture, like goes straight to like the front gate of the penitentiary, like a block away. And that at Halloween, this large corner lot, they stage a lynching as part of their Halloween decorations. So, I mean, I just think this context is important to understand that, like, a system that massively over incarcerates, massively over puts to death black people, black men specifically, this is a block, like end of the street from the penitentiary is a man that stages lynchings as a Halloween decoration. So I think like that context is important. Here were a couple signs. I tried to take too many pictures because at the time we didn't know what all was going to go down. Of course, obviously there's a million media there, and so like every single person there is on camera at some point. But tried to stick with signs for the most part. But it was a good vibe. People cared. It was a good group that was there. The crowd grew. I mean, like one report I heard, like I think she was live or maybe doing a remote or something, was like 50 people are here. I'm like, what? Like who was doing your crowd estimation, lady? Like, I would say by the end there were at least 200 people there, possibly more. It was a decent crowd, like, and who had driven, obviously most of them not from McAllister, but who had driven in to bear witness, to protest, to do what they needed to do. Cops seemed all right as far as cops go. It definitely did not have it as militarized, even though there were definitely some symbols that there were going to be some militarized police there, but they steered clear for the most part. It wasn't as aggressive as Oklahoma City Police Department at the Capitol and all that shit. So, it was good. Obviously powerful moment when the word came in to the crowd that Stitt had found the commutation. So, glad we were able to be down there. Obviously, lots of media covered it. So, we aren't media per se. Ours is more political analysis, but it was great to bear witness to that and be a part of it. And highly encourage people, like, when it's these do or die things and they come out, and I know it's last minute, but if you can, Black Wall Street Times was there, had good conversations with some of their folks, a lot of organizers, like if you can make it for this sort of stuff, and there were a lot of people in OKC, our groups that were talking to each other, we were more focused on McAllister, but, if you in the future, if folks can make it out to this sort of stuff, I know there's a lot of people who are interested, don't like the crowds, but even just standing there silently off to the side, like it matters, and you won't regret it. Like, let me put it that way. You won't be sad you made the trip. Like, take a day, call in if you can. It was a good group. Like, there were a lot of good folks there. And you won't regret showing up to these things. So I think it's an important lesson. Bodies matter, solidarity matters, and I know everyone can't do it, and jobs and anxieties and all sorts of stuff. But if you can make it in the future, because there's gonna be more of this stuff. Thanks for watching our video. Please give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more content. If you want to engage with us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram.